Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to conclude our deck building series around Eligeth, Crossroads Augur, and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, as today we complete the 98. What's up, MTG That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Here we are about to complete the build-around series of the winning pair of commanders chosen by you, the MTG Burgeoning community, as the champions of the Tournament of Partners. We introduced Eligeth, Crossroads Augur, and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces in the first episode of this series. During that time, we installed the Scry package as a way in which to abuse Eligeth's Scry to draw ability. In the next episode, we added a very powerful tribe to the 98 of the deck as a dozen Sphinxes made their way to cloud up the skies on the battlefield. And in our third and most recent rendition here, we added some miscellaneous spells and alternate win conditions. All that remains are our disruption and removal spells, our mana ramp, and our lands. So before we get to the new news, let's get to the old news. Here are the cards we've already included in the 98 of this deck. Chain to Memory, Mystic Speculation, Opt, Preordain, Serum Visions, Deliberate, Maze Mind Tome, Omen of the Sea, Scour All Possibilities, Jace Mirror Mage, Mystic Redaction, Retreat to Coral Helm, Behold the Multiverse, Foresee, Tamio's Epiphany, Netherese Puzzle Ward, Graven Lore, Eugen's Insight, Diviner's Portent, Sphinx of Foresight, Curator of Mysteries to be paired with Prognostic Sphinx in the presence of Eligeth Crossroads Augur to create an draw your entire library interaction. Cloud Reader Sphinx, Horizon Scholar, Consecrated Sphinx, Dream Eater, Unish Cryosphinx Sovereign, Atempsis All-Seeing, Scholar of the Lost Trove, Wind Reader Sphinx, Sphinx of the Second Sun, Library of Lang, Ominous Seas, Thassa's Oracle, Fabricate, Laboratory Maniac, Rhystic Study, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, Leyline of Anticipation, Teferi's Ageless Insight, Psychosis Crawler, Wandering Archaic, Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur, Omniscience, Kozlik the Great Distortion, and Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. Those are the cards included in the 98 of this build, and today we are going to finish the deck. We are done after this. Boy, has it been a ride, folks. This has been quite a journey as we built this mono blue deck helmed by the pair of tournament-winning partners. Let's move forward with some removal and disruption. Who doesn't like some removal and disruption? Somebody in the comment section, some member of the MTGBC, they have to explain to me how this card exists. It's Pongify. Instant speed, 1 blue mana, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Its controller creates a 3/3 green ape creature token. We don't care about a 3/3 token. We're in EDH. A 3/3 token is meaningless to us. Instant speed creature destruction for 1 blue mana? How does this exist? Somebody has to tell me why that card exists. And as long as you're going to tell me about Pongify, you might as well tell me about Rapid Hybridization as well. It is the exact same spell, except it's not a 3/3 green ape. It's a 3/3 green frog lizard. 2 instant removal creature destruction spells, each for 1 blue mana. Blue should not get to do that, folks. It should not get to do that. And we have 2 spells. Madness. Just madness. All right, removal spell number 3, Reality Shift. Another instant, we get to exile the creature this time for an additional mana, and its controller gets to manifest the top card of their library. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the manifest mechanic back from the Cons of Tarkir block, to manifest a card, the player puts the top card of their library onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature. If it's a creature card, that player can turn that card face up anytime for its mana cost. So there is a bit of potential for backfiring by casting Reality Shift, but as we all know, sometimes you have to play those odds in EDH as a way in which to eliminate a problematic or troublesome threat. All right, staying with a mana value of 2, we are going to include a copy of Resculpt. Instant speed, exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Okay, a 4/4 token is a bit bigger than the 3/3. However, for that extra mana, we get to exile the creature, but more importantly, we get to remove an artifact from the battlefield. Blue does not do extraordinarily well in artifact removal. Generally, it's through the means of bouncing it back to a hand or perhaps through, phasing it out. With Resculpt, we can exile one of those potential artifacts that cause those game-ending infinite combos. The next spell, Mono Blue, you know it's going to be in the deck, so we might as well just get it over with. It's Cyclonic Rift. We all know what this card does. We all know this card is still legal, so let's just fast forward through that portion of the description and move on to card number 6. Here we have Ether Spouts. It's an instant for 3 and 2 blue. For each attacking creature, its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Again, we have to make sure we're in blue, so we have to make sure we have some ways in which to hold off the massive attacks that we may see. Tribal decks, token decks. If that ends up happening, casting the 5 at instant speed to eliminate an opponent's army, either it's going to the top of the library or the bottom, or if they're tokens, they're just going to cease to exist. Either way, Ether Sprouts is a very nice one-sided board wipe if the opponent decides to go all out and attack us. Bumping up to a CMC of 6, we have Spectral Deluge. Sorcery speed for 4 and 2 blue. We return each creature our opponents control with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands we control. We are going to have this deck jam-packed with islands, so not having enough islands, that shouldn't be too much of a concern. I mean, it is safe to think that not every creature is going to be bounced this way, but the majority of them will. As a bonus, if you look up there and see that the CMC is 4 and 2 blue for a total of 6, we could foretell this and actually save on the overall mana cost. If we pay 2 during our turn and exile this card face down, we can cast it on a later turn for 1 and 2 blue. So overall, we'll pay a mana value of 5 over 6, and that is aces in our book. So Spectral Deluge is going to act as a very, very good removal card in our deck. Earlier, when we were talking about Resculpt and its ability to exile an artifact that blue generally has trouble exiling and getting rid of, we're going to include a spell that isn't necessarily blue because it's not blue, but we're going to use our blue mana to cast it, and it's going to allow us to exile any permanent on the battlefield. It's going to be a little pricey for 7, but exiling target permanent at instant speed for 7 mana in a straight blue deck, yeah, that's what we would pay for a Cyclonic Rift. But sometimes you just have to bite down on the bottom lip and cast this spell to exile something that blue just can't do. Artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, maybe even a land. Scour from Existence is one of those desperation spells, but we got to include it because we got to protect our 6, folks. We just have to. All right, and the last removal disruption spell for this portion of the deck, it is Curse of the Swine. Sorcery speed, X and double blue, exile X creatures. For each exiled creature this way, its controller creates a 2/2 green boar creature token. If we didn't care about 3/3 green apes, and we didn't care about 3/3 green frog lizards, we ain't going to care about 2/2 green boars, so Curse of the Swine is absolute aces in our book. All right, so with removal and disruption out of the way, now it's time to turn our attention to some mana rocks. So let's start heavy, let's start big. We're in one color, so we might as well start with a Jeweled Lotus. It costs us nothing. We tap, we sacrifice it, we use 3 blue mana to cast one of our commanders. It's just that simple, folks. Speaking of costing no mana and having a big impact, Mana Crypt, it's going to come down. It's going to give us 2 colorless mana. We'll flip a coin at the beginning of our upkeep. Sometimes we'll take some damage. Sometimes we won't. If we're me, 80% of the time, that life total is ticking down 3. All right, well, of course, the obligatory Soul Ring, that has to go in. That's the best artifact in our format. Next up, we are going to play with a copy of Mana Vault. All right, so Mana Vault costs 1. It does not untap during our untap phase, and if it is tapped during our upkeep, then it deals 1 point of damage to us. We have to pay 4 to untap Mana Vault, but we can only do it during our upkeep. We can tap this for 3 colorless mana. So, as long as our life total is manageable, we got to keep an eye to make sure, but including Mana Vault in this deck, particularly when we have 2 partner commanders with CMCs of 6 and 4, a turn 1 Mana Vault could lead potentially to a turn 2 casting. Well, it should certainly lead to a turn 2 casting of Sakashima. Whether or not we're going to want to do that, because we need to have a creature in play when it comes down, Mana Vault will help us get to Eligeth quicker, or it can help pay some of the commander tax that were likely to ensue, because once our opponents see what we're trying to do by warping Eligeth's Scry effect, we're going to become a target. This may be the best artifact that Commander has seen in a very long time, and it's only an uncommon. 2 to cast, pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability. Let's pause right there. Mana card with an artifact card with a mana ability. Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mana Vault. Bring it to your hand. That is ridiculous. For all colorless. That's what we do with a Fabricate. 2 and a blue does the exact same thing, and this is split into 2 costs, and it's colorless. How is this just an uncommon? How is this only a buck? This card is ridiculously powerful. And if you don't want the artifact, then you get your basic land. Either way, something that produces mana is going into your hand for an investment of 2 on cast and 1 to activate. Ridiculous. Mind Stone costs 2, taps for a colorless, pay 1, tap, sacrifice, draw a card. Thought Vessel. This is one of those effects that are going to keep those cards in our hand, because we're going to be drawing so many of them. We do not want to forfeit them to discarding down to our maximum hand size. And we can tap this to add a colorless mana. Having the Thought Vessel, having the Mind Stone, having the Mana Vault, the Soul Ring, the Mana Crypt, all of those artifacts will also help us to cast Kozilek the Great Distortion, because we can't use blue mana to pay the double colorless. And the last mana rock, not really a rock, but the last of our mana ramp, is Extraplanar Lens. It's an artifact for 3 with the imprint mechanic. When in ETBs, we may exile a land we control from the game. Whenever a land with the same name as the imprinted card is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana to their mana pool of any type that land produced. Of course, we're playing mono blue, so we're going to exile an island. But why on earth would we want to give other potential blue players access to more blue mana? Well, that's when you don't add islands to your deck. You add snow-covered islands instead. If Extraplanar Lens comes down and exiles a snow-covered island, only snow-covered islands are going to produce the additional mana. Regular islands will not do that. Advantage us. So here are our snow-covered islands, and there's 30 of them. 30 snow-covered islands, 30 of the 35 lands in this deck, snow-covered islands. Extra planar lens is going to make the difference, and you're going to see that this card will not help our opponents even close to as much as it's going to help us. All right, with 30 out of 35 lands, we're down to the last 5 cards of this deck tech. We're going to play with Castle Ventress. It enters the battlefield tapped unless we control an island. Well, we've got 30 of them. We tap for a blue, or we pay 2 and 2 blue and tap this to scry 2. Or if we have Eligeth on the battlefield and under our control, we're drawing 2 cards instead. Next up, it is Seagate Reborn. It is a land that comes into play tapped unless we pay 3 life. If we do, it comes into play untapped. We tap it for a blue. However, this is taking one of the land slots because on the front side is a sorcery called Seagate Restoration. 4 and triple blue. We draw cards equal to the number of cards in our hand plus 1. We have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. As you've seen so far throughout the entirety of this deck building series, we want to draw cards, we want to win through the process of drawing cards, we want to win through the process of emptying our library. Seagate Restoration will help to strengthen that, and if we don't need it and we need the land more, we have the option of getting it for the cost of 3 life if needed, or just putting it into play tapped. Next land, we have Urza's Saga. It is an enchantment land. It's going to come down and tap for a colorless mana right away. Then when the second lower counter goes on, we can tap this to create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact we control. When the third and last lower counter goes on, we search our library for an artifact card with mana cost 0/1, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle our library. So Urza's Saga is going to help us fetch out a Jeweled Lotus, a Mana Crypt, a Soul Ring, or a Mana Vault. All right, 2 cards left. The second last is Command Beacon, because we're going to suspect our opponents are going to be targeting Eligeth off the board. The commander tax could get quite high, so we are including Command Beacon as a way in which to sacrifice it to put one of those commanders into our hand to cast for its true mana value and not the inflated and exorbitant taxes that we're expecting to see. Last card, 98 of 98. It is the land version of Thought Vessel. It is Reliquary Tower. No maximum hand size. We've gone to great efforts to draw lots of cards. Let's keep them in our hands. There you have it, MTG BC. You chose Eligeth, Crossroads Augur, and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces as the Tournament of Partner Champions. Are you satisfied with the 98 that we constructed and to be helmed by your championship partners? Let me know in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.